video is part of a playlist put on every third Friday by Kate at So Kate, and I'll give you a little bit more information about that after the first project. Okay, first project I called Eek Cat. And I'm going to use this Dollar Tree sort of chalkboard kind of sign. I'm using the back, so you don't have to cover the front, which becomes the back. So I'm just trying to get the price sticker off here, and it gave me quite a hard time. I used a few different tools and a few different products. Finally, what did the trick was the rubbing alcohol. I was struggling to get rid of the residue, and I tried Glue Gun, and I just could tell it wasn't working. And when I grabbed the rubbing alcohol, I could feel the residue coming off, and so I just needed a little bit more to finish it up, and this happened. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna rub it. The sign was a little bit smudged anyway, and you can actually see the rubbing alcohol dry, which I thought was pretty cool. So I left it in, and I'm just going to mark off the borders because the stencil I'm using is a little bit small for the sign, and I probably could have used a smaller sign, but hindsight's 20/20. So I'm using the tape to make sure I get the Eek Cat in the middle and, you know, make the sign look balanced. I'm using that new stencil vinyl that was recommended by Brenda at Rustic and Lace. And it's thinner than regular vinyl, and I like it. I highly recommend it. And I'll put the name of it in my description box below. It's really easy to use, and it's really easy to remove and put down. I just really like it. This is a reverse stencil, so I actually weeded out the background and left the image. And the image is what I put down on the sign. And now I mixed up this blue with some blue-green, and I think I put some white in there too. And I'm just dabbing the paint down over top of the image. And it may not look, sometimes when you speed it up, it looks like you're rubbing it on, but I am actually dabbing it on. And just making sure there's a nice even coat, and then I'm going to remove the image. It is a little bit more fragile, so you do have to be careful when you remove it. And what I found works best is to trim it to make sure that the paint doesn't get messed up. That one I was able to get okay. It's more than the other project that I had to do some trimming. So just taking my time here because the paint is still wet, but I like removing stencils while the paint is still wet because I feel like it gives you cleaner edges. A lot of times I was doing it when the paint was tacky, and that works too. I find times when I left it too long and it dried that it was pulling up paint on the edges, and it didn't look very good. Now you could stop here. This actually looks pretty nice. A very clean, crisp lines. But I decided I wanted to use ribbon. I really like this ribbon. I got it at Temu. I miter cutting the edges or the bottoms, the corners. I'm miter cutting the corners, creating a little buffalo check frame. And then this pumpkin and buffalo check ribbon I got from Temu as well. I made the awareness shape, scrunched it together, and wrapped some twine around it. And I'm just going to hot glue it to the sign. And of course, extra, right? Especially with embellishments. I don't know what's wrong with me lately. My embellishments have to be like huge and all Halloween-y and fallish. But here you have it. I think I put raffia on it too, but you'll get a better look at it during the final reveal. Okay, so this playlist thing was spooktacular DIYs, but more specifically, skulls or cats. Kate from So Kate is the host, and she does this every third Friday at 1 p.m. Her co-host this month is Leanie from Crafty Leanie, and their channel links as well as a link to the playlist will be in my description box below. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the video. Scrap lumber cat. Use any piece of lumber that'll be the size of your cat. I used a jigsaw to cut the shape of the ears. I did see this cat somewhere last year, but you know, I can't remember who it was, and I don't want to say the wrong names. I just used a little piece of sandpaper that I got in a pack from Dollar Tree, and I took these heart embellishments and painted one gray. I took a random base from a Dollar Tree shelf sitter, and I glued that on the bottom of the cat with wood glue, but I also had 2 small nails that I hammered into it just for, you know, for strength. And this is going outside, so I don't want to lose that base. I paint the whole thing in rich black chalk paint, and I'm not trying to be perfect. I mark off what I think should be a good good size for the face. The face is going to be the most prominent part of it for me. You could draw some legs on the bottom, or cut, you know, make a saw cut in the middle to define the legs, but I chose to just leave it more rustic. I used some green chalk paint for the eyes and pink acrylic paint for the mouth, but the colors were soaking into that lumber and looking rather dull, so I do need to fix that. But first I'm going to drill holes in the wrong spot. I drilled the holes side to side because I wanted a zip tie to go through them and hold the whiskers, but I realized this isn't going to work. They're in the wrong spot. Okay, we got this. I'm just going to drill 2 holes, one on top of each other. And that little heart nose is going to cover these holes. So thankfully I didn't put them too far apart. Okay, we're going to get those whiskers in there. But first we've got to get the zip tie in there, and I'm not used to zip ties. I don't use them very often. I always have them on hand though. And the way I pulled in the zip tie, I couldn't pull it tight on the back. So I'm going to end up putting some staples in the back. You'll notice the eyes are brighter, as well as the mouth. I used those 2 Fumsel paint markers you see there off to the side to make it brighter, because this is going outside and I want it to start off pretty bright, and the chalk paint was just looking really dull. I think partly because the lumber was soaking it up, and partly because it was a black background. I maybe should have painted it white first and then put the color on top, but the paint markers came out nice and bright. So here I am just stapling down the zip tie on the back, so giving me a nice tight hold on the whiskers in the front. And I liked it, but the whiskers just didn't seem super noticeable, so I decided to make them a little curly. And I know normally cats' whiskers aren't really curly, but you know, it's a cartoon cat, so this is how I decided I wanted it to look. Here I am gluing the little nose there and covering up all holes that I drilled. And I'll give you a better look at this during the final reveal. Okay, then the final project I like to call Spider Cat. And this was actually inspired by an image I saw in Cricut Design Space when I was trying to do the Eek Cat. And I thought, this cat looks like he's trying to get a bug, a spider. And I'm like, wait a minute, cat, spider, Halloween. So this is the new stencil vinyl that I'm debuting in this video. And I really like it. It's thinner than regular vinyl, and I feel like it was a lot easier to use. So This is going to be a regular stencil use. The Eek Cat was a reverse stencil. Basically saved the image, painted over the image. And what was left was the result. This project, I'm weeding the image out and painting in the void left by that. The transfer tape, sorry, I couldn't think of that. The transfer tape is not necessarily made for Cricut Joy, which is what I use, but I can cut it to shape, and I don't mind that. It's actually better in a way because I can, you know, make good use of it and use scraps of it and whatnot. So I went ahead and trimmed because I want to get an idea of how far from the cat the spider is. But I did want to look like the spider was like coming down on a web, you know, like a single web and hanging down from like the ceiling kind of thing. Only inside the pumpkin. It takes a little bit to get started. And then I like to pull it from different sides, not just top to bottom. Because I feel like I was worried, since the vinyl's a little bit thinner, I was worried I might rip it. So if I'm going from side to side and being a little bit more gentle, you get a good outcome. So I use my Cricut scraper to put the stencil down. And I do the same thing with the spider. And I'm going to let you know right now that this video cuts off a little bit at the end. So it's a little bit sudden at the end, but the final result will be in the final reveal, sorry. Okay, so putting down Mod Podge. This is supposedly supposed to give you cleaner edges, but I always forget to do it. But I'm doing it now. So working on the position of the spider in relation to the cat. I just think this is so cute, the way he's reaching up for something. And the spider just like totally fit. I am speeding up the process, the drying process of the Mod Podge with my heat tool. And I don't think it needs to be totally dry. I know my spider wasn't totally dry. So speeding things up here just to get this rich black chalk paint down. And I'm going to pull it up right away. You could wait a little bit, but I like it to be damp when I pull it up. I think you get cleaner edges that way. So here's the reveal. And you see I'm going to trim away some of the stencils so it doesn't get rubbed onto the pumpkin. So trimming as I go. And then here's the spider. And the spider came out so well, you know, with those little legs. I wasn't sure. Just draw that little line. And he's hanging down. And I'm going to do a bunch of embellishments. And you don't see them all here. I used school glue, but I had to come back with hot glue for the raffia and the Spanish moss at the bottom. And better look at the final reveal.